All hail, the gang is all here. Craig's here, Claude's here. I'm Grumpy Dungeon Master Jay. I'm here.
I'm Grumpy Dungeon Master Christopher. I'm also here. Thank
Wow.
you.
All
Thank you
right.
for listening to our
Yep.
podcast. Have a great night.
Yep. This was a great podcast. Thanks for listening. See you next time. No.
We got a one time maybe start off a podcast without sounding so dejected and hating the world.
Oh, it's mostly you that does that.
Oh well. I
Yeah.
did start the Grumpy Dungeon Masters.
Yeah. Exactly. You chose the name for this podcast. I would not have called it that. I am not a grumpy person whatsoever.
Yes, you are. You are very grumpy. You
Uh,
you are not hip with
I,
what all the kids are.
I'm
You don't like the fact that there are cowboys and magic. You are a grumpy man.
I'm old man grumpy. That is not the same thing. You're just
Th-
generally grumpy.
I have a very sour, foreboding disposition, but that is different than your
Then old.
grumpiness, which is my old man yelling at clouds, kind of grumpy. But
Yes.
we're both the same.
Yeah. Speaking of old men yelling at clouds, so let's go ahead and talk about the thing you posted earlier with the SRD. Apparently, Wizards of the Coast is going to have an update to the SRD that's going to include the upcoming 5.5 stuff. Correct?
Yeah, so they're with the next release of what they're calling the 2024 rules revision. They're releasing SRD 5.2.
Yeah, I saw it was 5.2, which now I guess we have to call D&D 5.2 since it's
No,
not five. It's not
it's
5.5. It's
it's
5.6, or it's not 5. It's not 5.5. It's not 6. It's going to be 5.2.
no, that's just SRD. That's the system reference document. That's completely different than the version of D&D that we're playing.
Oh, okay. It's funny because I saw they were adding this to the SRD. The first thing I had to do is look up what the hell is the SRD, and effectively it's just the OGL. For those who don't know, the OGL is the Open Gaming License. The SRD is it's what they use for the Open Gaming License.
Right.
So they just complicated the shit out of it by even saying they were doing that. They should have just said we're going to add the new addition to Dungeons and Dragons to the Open Gaming License.
They don't have an OGL for fifth edition, or not anymore. They replaced that with the SRD. The SRD is what was released for the Creative Commons, and that's okay. The SRD and the OGL are very different things, but they're kind of the same thing in a way. The OGL was
It's lawyer speak. It's all fucking lawyer speak.
it's all fucking lawyer speak, yes. But all that matters is that they're continuing to allow people to create and edit and publish content that is of their own creation using D&D as a basis, at least
Yeah.
5th edition as a basis. You can't make it 4th content or 3.5 anymore.
Well,
That's incorrect.
Yeah.
You can make 3.5 because that was a part of the original
OGL. Yeah, that's
OGL.
That's how Pathfinder exists.
Right. And the SRD is for 5th edition. There's an SRD for 4th edition. The 4th edition SDR is not available. Why would you want to make a 4th edition game? 4th edition is a great system. It's just...
Why would you want to make a 4th edition when you can make the same thing with 5th edition? Because it's literally the same damn game.
to a point, yeah. It's pretty much the same.
Yeah, there's a few things, the healing surges and shit that are gone, but otherwise it's the same game.
Pretty much it is. But they're staying proactive with the fact that they are trying to find some good headspace with the community and make up for the whole OGL debacle back in the day.
I wonder if them doing this right out of the gate has anything to do with them booting Cynthia Williams.
I think it has nothing to do with her.
Probably not, but it's just the while she was there sort of running shit is when they kept having debacle after debacle after debacle, like over and over and over again every 2 months with some new shit.
I guarantee you Cynthia Williams doesn't even know what the SRD stands for.
Oh, probably not. Like
That thing never reached her email box until it blew up in everybody's face.
Yes, but when it blew up, she found out what it was very quickly. I assure you, when you lose $1 billion.
Yes, that is correct. But beyond that, it shows good faith to me that they're continuing this. They're not releasing it now because there's a lot of content and changes for the 2024 re-release that hasn't been released yet. So they're releasing it all basically when the monster manual comes out
Yep.
later this year, which is interesting because it sounds like they're going to release all the player content with the SRD release with the monster manual, but the player's handbook's not coming out till much later.
Weird.
I know.
Yeah, because
Well,
the player's handbook is the first thing from 5.5 to drop, and the monster manual is the last of the 3 core books. Might have been the second book. It might be the DMG that's the last one. I don't remember.
no, the player's handbook comes out in September. The Dungeon Master's Guide comes out in November, and then the
Okay.
monster manual in February.
Yeah, so I've just assumed that they were updating the OGL thing sometime next year after all that was released.
No.
I didn't read the article. I just saw that it was a thing, and I got the basis of it.
Yep. So I mean, overall, it's
It's
very
the
positive that they're
yeah.
doing it, and I'm happy.
It is the right move for sure. Yeah.
Definitely the right move for sure, especially given the state of things. I'm still not sure how well it's going to be received because I don't know. Like, I was talking to a couple new players um, in my local gaming shop this weekend,
Mhm.
and he was buying all the core rule books that he can with player options. And then I had to tell him, like, oh yeah, just be careful, man, because you're gonna have to buy all that again come September. And it's like the Tajos will still be fine, and the monster manual here for the monsters of the multiverse will still be fine, but all the other options you want to buy are going to be gone.
Okay.
Because
Hold on. Yeah, if he's wanting to run the stuff online and gives a shit about D&D Beyond, then I would agree with you. If that's how he's planning to do it. If he's going to run in person, yeah, the player's handbook will be out of date here in a few months. But everything else, all the way back to Volos, the first or Xanathar's Volos, all of those are still perfectly viable, assuming they are not rewriting the rules, which they claim they're not.
they most definitely are. So buying all the spell cards and stuff like that are not going to work. So if you start buying new content and the new like fighter options, it's not going to work with the old fighter. You have to have the new fighter.
Spell card's probably a bad idea to buy. Yes, because some of the spells might get altered. That's why I was saying the player's handbook is probably, and don't mess with the player's handbook if you can wait till the next one comes out. But all those other ones, like, they should be fine. They're not. I don't think they're going to go re-release Volo's Guide to Monsters. I don't think they're going to re-release Xanathar's book of whatever the hell it was.
No, those are going away when the Monster Manager
They're
comes
going
out.
away on the SRD. They're still perfectly fine if you're just playing at home or at a local shop, not running your Adventures League stuff.
See, it keeps saying that,
Oh,
and
I know that.
I understand that anyone can go back and play any previous edition of first edition or second edition or third edition or 3.5 or fourth edition or 4E, because 4 Essentials 4E is very different than fourth edition.
Third edition to
No
3.
one plays third edition. Everyone plays 3.5.
I use third edition books in my 3.5 games all the time. I don't use the
You
player's
can't.
handbook.
Right. So you can't use the player's handbook stuff and all the stuff that's associated with the player's handbook,
Which is the player's handbook.
which is all the spell cards, which is
Well, yeah, that's
all
what
the
I'm saying.
subclasses that exist. I don't know how the 3 to 3.5 thing worked, but you can't level up a Eldritch Knight because it's not part of the player's handbook. It was part of an extra content. the same in a 5.5 fighter. Like, you just can't do that. It won't work
I don't see why not.
because they level differently, man.
How do they level differently? Mind you, I don't have obviously I don't have the
Okay,
5.5 book in front of me.
so essentially no one does, but we saw the play test, and essentially they truncated levels down from 20 to 18. Okay,
Oh
then they
yeah, yeah.
moved all the skills around.
Yes.
Okay, so you
Okay.
can't use a subclass for the fighter
That is
with
from the player's handbook.
the new fighter, because you're not going to let the breakpoints of the skills, and as they get assigned, don't work anymore. They
I see.
changed the breakpoints of the leveling.
I see
So
what you're saying, but I don't. Okay, so if a fighter from 5.5 gets an ability at 6th edition, and then a subclass in one of, say Xanathar's book gets an ability at 6th edition, I as a DM am just going to say, cool, you get 2 abilities at 6th level. Sorry, not 6th edition, but 6th level.
right,
It doesn't alter the ability to play those subclasses. You're just going to level. You're going to get your
you then
abilities at
have to
different
go
points.
out and start fixing and band-aiding all the stuff that exists for those classes for the old thing. You're basically just doing their work for them, which is too much work for me to handle.
You don't have to do anything. You look at the subclass and it says you get an ability at 6th level. You look at the fighter, it says you get an ability at 6th level. All right, you get 2 abilities at 6th level. Cool.
And then you
Yeah,
have a broken character that's doing too much or too little.
maybe. Yeah, that
It
remains to be seen. That's a you have to actually have all the books and see how shit plays out. But
Yes, so no one's taking Chris Perkins, Cynthia Williams' ghost is not coming to your house and double teaming you and taking your books off the wall. Okay, no one's saying that, but no one wants to play old shit either in the new generation of people. And before you go out back on your porch and say, "Well, back in my day, we played the old editions and we're fine with it," new kids nowadays don't want to do that.
this is not an even back in my day. OSR is like it's growing massively at the moment. The old school revival is quite a big deal. And you may not see that where you're at because you literally just run your D&D game online and you run at your local game store.
Yes, where people are, where people live. Where
But
I talk to teenage kids who wanted to still play the game and continue playing the game further into the future, who've never played and will never play fourth or third or second or first.
I mean, if you start naming just going off of YouTube alone, if you start naming not the people running the game's largest channels, but the people who talk about role playing games, the largest ones other than Jenny D are all OSR people. You've got Questing Beast, you've got Professor Dungeon Master, you've got what's the one they do a lot of Pathfinder stuff that we talk about occasionally on here. There's Bob the World Builder. Like they're almost all these guys are non D&D people.
Yeah, and they're all like 30 plus, man.
Yeah,
Okay. No,
yet
no,
that's what
they're not
everyone on
they're
YouTube's
not
watching.
they're not no. They're all
Uh,
30 plus. And the people who are 30 plus are watching those people. The people who are
Bob the World Builder is not,
15
but
15 plus, 15 to 30 aren't. They don't even use YouTube. They're not on TikTok. They're on TikTok.
yeah, they're all on TikTok. Well,
Right.
not for long.
But to my point is they're going to use the stuff that's coming out. They're not going to be backdating. They're not going to fix stuff. They're just going to go, "Oh, shit, I can't use this fighter anymore because this fighter's out now. It's a newer one. I'm going to play the better one." And the newer one is occasionally the better one.
Yeah, I would never expect them to play a 5th edition
And when
fighter when
they
they can play a 5.5. But if there's a subclass in a 5th edition book that somebody's like, that's cool, there's
but
no
they
reason they
then
can't
have to
run it.
go through and then stat and categorize all the skills and when things come out, because like they change like how fighter not so much, but like bards and a couple of the other classes that were half casters change now, so they level up at different intervals to get all their abilities and everything. So instead of being at like third, 6, 12, 15, and 18. It's now third, fifth, or third, sixth, ninth, and whatever.
Yeah.
So like there's fundamental changes to the core philosophy of how the characters work. I mean, yes, the math hasn't changed, unless it's the same edition, but you're just asking people to work too much. And by the way, you got to buy the new books that comes out that have the fixes to it.
I mean, they do want people to buy the new book, so I'm not even surprised by any of that, because that's how they make a little bit of money.
So, but another thing I was talking to them about too is that they were looking for player options because the one guy was mostly a player, but the other guy was a DM, and he was looking for DM options and stuff like that. And they made the comment, it's like they're kind of sad that fifth edition doesn't have any books that have a lot of lore in them. And I agreed.
Yeah, oh yeah. Everyone who knows anything about 5e complained about that.
So, going into the stack of books that I own, all right, the stack of books that were gifted to me from Synergy, from their owner Andrew.
Oh, are we talking about that one already?
Yeah, we're already going to this one.
Oh, okay. I actually have my copy of the one we're talking about this week pulled out.
Oh
So.
no, this is a book. This is one of the surprise books that they're gonna talk about. So in the stack of books that I got, I received a second edition Advanced Dungeons and Dragon lore book.
Which one?
I will give you a hint. It's for the Dragonlance setting.
Okay, then I probably don't. I probably do not own it because I don't actually own any second ed Dragonlance lore
It's
stuff.
for a race. What race do you think it's for?
Specifically for one race.
Specifically for one race.
My guess is going to be Kinder because that's it's either Kinder or Dragon, or the Draconians.
Okay. So this Dragonlance Saga Advanced Dungeons and Dragons Second Edition book, that's all lore, is for the dwarves.
Okay.
It's called A World in Stone.
Does it have the Gully Dwarves in there?
Well, maybe you could tell me. I didn't read through the book, ad nauseum. I don't care about Dragonlance lore, so I wasn't going to read too much in it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'll go over the table of
Good.
content.
You feel free to give me or sell me that book then.
I need kindling for my fire, man.
I will drive to your house and murder you in your sleep.
First off, I have to say that the cover art for this book, A World in Stone, is done by the great Larry Elmore.
Of course.
And it's basically a bunch of dwarves hauling a wagon of treasure across a grassy knoll as this adult red dragon swoops in down from it, and only one dwarf is like pointing up, like, "Dude, there's a dragon right there."
Yeah,
They're all about to die.
What's the actual name of the book?
A World in Stone.
Okay, thank you.
So, it kind of goes through the timeline for the dwarves in the realm, the dwarven calendar, other sources that basically have that contribute to the book. And then here are the dwarven groups that they go over in detail: the Calthax, the Thorian, the Thorbardin, Thoradin, Kaolin, and Zahakar. Now, I didn't go through and look at all of them. The only ones I kind of looked at in glancing was the Zahakar, because they're called the home of the cursed ones.
Okay.
And there's plagues and whatnot. And I go to the very back of the book where these dwarves are, and the one picture the book opens up to is the dwarves fighting back a group of fungal folk, which are basically sentient mushrooms.
Yeah.
But they're sentient mushrooms that basically crossbred with dwarves, essentially.
Oh, that's weird.
Right. And so the Sakar dwarves basically somehow crossbred with these dwarves, or these mushrooms. I think basically the mushrooms kind of like
they spored all over them.
Yeah. And what was really weird too is that these fungal folk look like they have just giant penis for hands, and uncircumcised penis for hands, And that's all I could think about when I looked at this picture. And I can't not see it every time I look at it. I'm going to give you guys a picture of it, but that's just what it is. And so these fungal folk have movers and beaters and shakers.
Of course they do.
Yeah. And what was interesting about this is that this fungal folk stat block, which is lore and their stats for these fungal creatures, and basically their combat tactics, all in one page. Okay.
Yeah.
And I go back to the next page, and here's the Zakar lizards. Again, one full page, 2 columns, as a D&D books normally are set up, with the stats, 2 variants, fast claws and war claws, and essentially how they fight as combat tactics. And throughout this book, it's pretty much the same way. Every time there's a monster type that's specific to a Dwarven region, it's one page, 1, 2, or 3 types, and a combat tactics with a little bit of lore mixed in.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to keep that a note for when we actually discuss the key star that you've already spoiled, the Isle of Dread.
Yeah. Well, you spoiled it last week.
Yes. You guessed it. So, so this is basically 100 pages of just straight lore about all these different dwarves and these different areas, which I like how this is set up. I like how this book is set up. There's just a lot of reading here. Like I would have to want to be very situated with wanting to sit down and read all about the hill dwarves and their villages and shit. And if I was very interested in doing that, this book would be a great source. Much like when we talked about the White Wolf book, there's a lot of fucking story there. There's a lot of just data and specifics about how those things operated.
It is very detailed information about, and I'm assuming with the dwarf book, about those specific clans, where they live in the world, how they came to be in the world, what their beliefs are in that world, things that a lot of that already exists for Forgotten Realms, but it comes from 2nd edition and 3rd edition. You just don't have access to it in 5e unless you just go online and look this stuff up.
And so it got me curious and got me thinking about how the lore books have been set up in 5th edition. Okay.
What lore books?
Well, the one that so this book, sorry, the Dragonlance of World and Stone does reference published modules throughout the book saying, hey, these monsters are featured in DL14 or DL3. So skipping ahead to 5th edition, the one book I would say that is the standout amongst all of them is Waterdeep Dragon Heist. Okay. Because it has that adventure from 1 to 5, which are the first 4 chapters of the book. All right.
Yep.
Then chapters 5, 6, 7, and 8 are optional big dungeons. And by the way, not this weekend, but the following weekend, my group is finally getting back together on streaming.
Yay.
And we'll be streaming Xanathar's Lair, the full invasion of it. So I've had to up the level a little bit because this is level like 6 or so, but it's going to be very interesting. But chapter 9 of Waterdeep Dragon Heist is Volo's, Waterdeep, and Kyridian, which talks about Waterdeep and pretty much everything about the City of Splendors, and a good 30 pages. And there's also a little bit in the front of the book, too, in the introduction that kind of talks about how Waterdeep functions and who the major factions are.
Yeah.
So this book is the only one I could think of in 5th edition, at least right off the top of my head. Probably Tomb of Annihilation would be the other, that has a lot of just straight data about a location in there.
Yep.
And I will say that I have come back and referenced Volo's and Kyridian for Waterdeep more than I have any other chapter or section in this book. And a lot of it, honestly, for me, has been the timeline, like what happens throughout the year, because Waterdeep Dragon Heist is very specific on what season you're playing in. There's a lot of festivals that happen, a lot of this week is trade week, so there's a lot of extra things that happen, but like the coinage and how the coinage works, and just how you hire coaches and how you travel about the city, like
That's useful stuff.
it's useful stuff. Like this book, Dragon Heist, is what I'd want from books in the future. Like I like this Dragonlance book. I like that it's all dwarves all the time, 24/7 dwarves. I would never read it.
Sure.
If
Yeah.
I did read it, if I was playing Dragonlance, I would pick one dwarf clan in here and read all about them and probably not touch the rest.
Yeah.
But I don't really.
I'm the kind of guy who would read that front to back.
Right.
Just to learn about the different dwarven clans. I've started reading Ravenloft, the third edition book I've got, and I'm pretty much reading it front to back. And holy shit, there's a lot of info in there.
Yeah. So there's an Einstein quote that I'm familiar with, and
That you're gonna butcher, I'm sure.
no, he says never memorize something you can just look up in a book.
Yeah.
So if I wanted to learn something about anything in Forgotten Realms, there's a wiki on the internet. So I don't have to memorize. I don't have to sit down and read lore books about Forgotten Realms when I have the Forgotten Realms wiki. I can just get lost in that thing for hours.
Oh yeah.
Now,
Absolutely.
that's more of a millennial take on things, I think, than a Gen X take on things.
Eh, I mean, I sometimes I hop on online and just hit one of those wikis for Dragonlance or Forgotten Realms, and I'm gone for a few hours.
Yeah.
Like it's not a, it's just a, I, people are interested in something, and you go down this fucking rabbit hole to keep finding out more and more and more stuff.
See, I would pay for a lore book if it mattered to me.
Hmm.
I wouldn't pay for a lore book if it didn't. Like I've been buying every 5e book, good or bad.
Yeah.
So if they started publishing 5e lore books, I would buy them.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I have a ton of fucking lore books from second
Yeah.
edition, third edition. I have never touched. I have a wall full of paperback novels, many of which I have never opened.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things. At some point, I do sit down with these things and just read through them.
A real quick side note: on the very far back of the last page of this Dragonlance book, there's a full page advert for R.A. Salvatore's The Legacy.
Okay,
I'm not sure
so
what book that is in the Dritz Du Worden series.
Legacy is the fourth book that Salvatore wrote. It is the first book about Drizzt, his actual story. That's the book of his birth.
Yeah, the best part is it's the old art for Dritz, where he's an old wrinkly dwarf or
Yeah.
old wrinkly drow.
Is it the black cover sort of
Yeah,
look?
yeah,
Yeah, that's the, so I actually have first edition printings that I bought when they came out of that series.
yeah. So, getting back on the topic of the lore book, like I said, it's great. Um, I've actually been thinking about buying the Photos Guide to Waterdeep second
Mhm.
edition book. I can buy a reprint from DM's Guild,
Sure, yeah,
and
or
I
you
think
could
that
or you could be the collector and buy the original one.
I don't care because it's going to be in the same style that this book is, just
Yeah, oh
soft
yeah,
cover book.
yeah,
If it was hardcover, maybe, but
yeah. I'm just that I'm a collector when it comes to the old books.
yeah.
Can't
And like
help
I said,
myself.
all the lore books that I've bought for 5e, looking at my little stack here, um, the only ones that stick out outside from Waterdeep is the Ed Greenwood books that I have.
Well, yeah, but that's what I mean. You've watched his YouTube channel. Like that's literally what he does. He creates lore. Like that's
Yeah,
his thing.
yeah. So I mean, it's I think there's still a space for lore books. I think if they would take a step back from that Planescape box set and make them these old soft covers like the expert rules were, where they're the expert rules and an adventure, and add in a lore book along with things like
Yeah.
they were kind of doing that for fourth edition. I think that would be the best because the Planescape box set is great for Planescape, but they took up so much space to say so little.
Yeah. You can do an adventure in a lot less space than they are. And then you could do an actual book. I mean, there were 3 books in there, right? And each one was about 100 pages, correct?
Yeah,
Yeah. So, yeah, I guess you could do an adventure in 100 pages. You could do one book that is this is how things sort of operate, and then another one that's just detailed lore on the Planescape.
yeah. And that book is a half an inch. So 3 books, the cover, and the case. That's like 4 inches of bookshelf space.
Yeah.
When you look at what we're about to talk about, the Isle of Dread
Oh, it's
is
tiny.
maybe a what two, one
Uh,
fourth of an
the
inch
the entire
less,
the entire module is 32 pages.
right? And
That's
so,
maps, that's monsters, that's everything. That's even the lore on
yeah.
the island.
So moving into my next topic is now the Isle of Dread. This is the accompanying adventure that was in relation to the expert rules that we talked about last podcast.
Yeah, from the blue box
Yeah.
basic edition.
And so the first thing I have to note here is how much of this place they stuffed into, I believe it's an actual page count. I'm trying to get here.
32
31,
pages.
31 pages.
Oh, yours is different than mine. Mine is 32.
Well, they may count the soft cover because remember the cover and the back cover are pages too.
uh,
Um,
taking off the cover because my cover is a map.
yeah.
Okay, yeah, like it's
Oh, I'm not counting the last page, which is the text and the letter in the map.
well, no, the last page I have actually at the bottom has a pronunciation guide. It's got monsters on it, and it's page 32.
No,
So you have a different printing than I do.
probably the first printing. This came out in 1981.
Yeah, yours is definitely older. Mine is actually out of the blue box from the early 90s. Let's see if I can find the actual date. Eh,
So
this is the 83 edition. So
so what was very interesting about this book when I was kind of going through it was how quickly they say something and move on. Okay.
yep.
So monster stat blocks, and maybe this is just because of the simplicity of the older systems, but the monster stat block is at most half a half a column of a page. So every Dungeon Dragons book has 2 columns per page.
Hmm.
So in the Dragonlance book, it was 1 monster, 1 page, 2 variants. And in this, it's basically a third of a page for 1 monster, their lore, the combat tactics, and all their stats. The stats are a little bit different. The text is a little bit smaller, but it's just very straight to the point. There's no fluff here,
Yeah.
you know?
Yep.
Like in the other there, in the Dragonlance book, it talked about how the mushroom people, every time they hit something that's a solid, they take a point of damage because they have penises for arms. Um, and in this one here, that specific probably detail is, you know, rounded down from being 2 sentences to, they take 1 damage on every attack or something like that. The text is much more straightforward.
Yeah,
And
it gives you so just looking at a stat block. I'm looking at the Rakasta camp. It's warriors. There's 16 of them. Armor class 6. Gives you your hit dice. It gives you how many hit points they have. It gives you their movement, how many attacks, what type of attacks, and how much damage, and then their saves.
yeah,
That's pretty much it. You get their morale and their alignment because that's also a basic thing. And there's nothing else. There's no other flavor text, and it might give you a little bit of lore or something on how they fight.
yeah.
That's all you really need as a DM.
So, and comparing this then now to Waterdeep Dragon Heist, where chapter 1 is 20 pages and it's the introduction to the system and everything that's going on. This book is pretty much the same thing, but it's only 3 or 4 pages worth of detail. There's a lot of text, of course. There's a lot of text in the introduction chapter for Dragon Heist,
Hmm.
but it's just more straightforward. Like preparation. Here's how here's how your players are going to get the island. Here's 4 choices, and bam, bam, bam. No superficial text to kind of pad out a word count. But it's all there. There's plenty of words there. It's just here's what it is. They can get a boat. They generate a percentage based on the price paid for how good the boat is,
Yeah.
and it roll between these two values and see if it sinks. And it's just straightforward, just to the point exactly. And then even like when it gets to where you start doing the traversing through the island, there's 3 monster tables here, and
Yep.
they're on 1 page. If this was in a 5e book, this would be like 6 pages.
Yeah. You've got your general island wandering monsters, and there's 3 tables worth of that. A little further back, there is another wandering monster table.
So when I was going through this, I kind of had this weird epiphany that I could take this Isle of Dread right now. Okay.
Yep.
I could run this as is.
As
All
5e.
right. For 5e. And all I'd have to do is go, okay, so when I roll the percentage for the random island monster, okay, I need were boars and were tigers. Well, I know that they're in the monster manual, so I use those stats for the monster manual, and I'm done. The monster manual has stats for black dragons, red dragons,
Yeah.
dryads, rocks, and all this
So
shit.
so one thing to
But,
realize. Go
but
ahead.
hold
Go ahead.
on. If I were to take a 4th edition module, even, I couldn't do that. Because the 4th edition's math just doesn't work at all.
Yeah.
And you can't 1-for-1 monsters from 4th edition onwards, because they have whole different like saving throws and how things work and how the monster situations work. It wasn't just a skeleton,
Yeah.
There were this skeleton is a level 30 skeleton. This skeleton's a level 5 skeleton.
Oh, okay.
I could probably be like, okay, well these are pretty much 1-for-1 from 1st to 5th, and I'm sure probably 3rd would work too. But I just like the ease on how I could still run this adventure right now and not have any problems running it.
Yeah. Now, a couple of things to be aware of to try to do something like that. This is written. It says it's for character levels 3 to 7. Now, if you remember right, basic Dungeons and Dragons goes up to like level 34 or something. A level 3 to level 7 character in basic Dungeons and Dragons is not the equivalent of a level 3 to level 7 in 5e.
No.
Because they are this is written probably with 8 players in mind. It's also taking into account mercenaries that you would hire. Random encounters in here from level 3 to 7, black dragon or whatever. One black dragon in basic Dungeons and Dragons, and it doesn't have an age listed to it in the random table. It's just
Yeah, it
black
does.
dragon. Okay, well the
It
one I'm
says not older than average age for the black and green, and the red dragon is young only.
Oh, okay. I see it at the bottom. Sorry. It didn't have it right next to the text. So, but yeah, it's still, that is a nasty fucking fight. A Tyrannosaurus Rex on here will fuck up a party. And this is one of those scenarios that's designed for the players to realize, oh shit, we should run away.
Yeah.
Some of these you shouldn't fight. You're not going to take on. They have rocks in here. ROC, the fucking giant birds that are. I don't know what CR they are in 5e, but it's pretty goddamn high.
6.
Yeah. So, but there's a couple of those that you could potentially fight. It's like this
But
is not
to,
balanced.
to
for
my
that.
point, I wouldn't start my players at 3. Like I was saying, I wouldn't need to adjust anything in here. I would
Yes,
say,
you're right.
okay, you guys are starting at level 5. All right, there's 5 of you because I like running with a table of 5.
Yeah.
Cave bears 1 to 4. That works. Dire wolves 1 to 6. That's still 5 to 7.
Yeah.
5 to 8 range. Ghouls 6. That's a pretty hard fight for level 3s.
That's a rough fight for sure.
How about level 5s? You can handle it. Dryads, maybe. Black dragon, good luck, but
Yeah.
you can run away. That's half the point sometimes. Giant rats, 20 of them. You got this. You know, there wouldn't be much issues. They'd still have to play it safe. I mean, half this adventure is you just dying while you try to find the dungeon, and
Oh
then when you
yeah,
find the dungeon, you just died all the traps in the dungeon.
yeah. So
Um,
so couple more things. One thing that this does, and this is an old way of doing things. This is a hex crawl. Like, and for people who are not familiar with a hex crawl dungeon, it's hexes on a map. You walk from one hex to the next, and the DM will tell you what is there. You have no idea. It is a whole bunch of not quite random encounters, but there's a lot of random encounters.
yeah,
And when you're reading through the text on this thing, it leaves so much under the DM's control. If you were to read a 5e module, it is going to tell you how all the NPCs will react to the players. It's going to tell you kind of what the players should do in the scenario. It has a very linear way of handling things. In this one, I'm just going to read the Rakasta camp real quick and let the people listening know all of the information that's in this thing. A tribe of Rakasta have set up a temporary camp in this area. Rakasta are a race of nomadic feline humanoids. They walk erect, but their heads and features are cat like and their bodies are covered with soft, tawny fur. The Rakasta are a proud and barbaric race. They are fierce fighters who cover their natural claws with metal. Certain Rakasta warriors ride saber-toothed tigers. These tiger riders are considered to be the bravest and strongest of the Rakasta warriors, and only they can hold the respect of the saber-toothed tigers. They dwell in large, richly furnished tents. Their treasures include silk tapestries, brightly colored carpets, bronze artifacts, gilded leatherwork, silverware, and gold jewelry. The tribe treasures are worth a total of 10,000 gold pieces, equal to the weight of 10,000 coins. There are 16 normal warriors and 3 tiger riders in this temporary camp. It tells you how many hit points they've got, and that's it. That's everything you have. There is nothing telling you whether these guys are aggressive. There is nothing telling you whether you should roleplay and make friends with them or whether they're going to just attack you straight up. Um, it is leaving that for the dungeon master to make that decision, or for the player, to see how the players react. And that I love that. That is kind of what it should be. Yeah, let the DM make those decisions. Are you still there?
yeah, I'm still here.
Okay.
I was just following along, and also looking at the kitty sticker at the back of the book. This one also has a kitty sticker, by the way,
Oh,
but
nice.
this one has a little cowboy hat on.
Yeah. One other thing that out of that I'd mentioned exactly, it tells exactly how many gold piece their treasure is worth. That's a first edition and basic D&D thing because you would actually level up by gaining treasure. So if you kill all those Rakasta, maybe they're worth 100 XP a piece or whatever. But if you
Yeah,
are able to get 10,000 gold piece worth of treasure out of them and get it back to civilization, you then earn 10,000 experience points on top of that.
and I think I think this is cool. Like it's like I could do so much with this, and it's 30 pages.
Yeah. And
I kind of
easily runnable, very easy to shift it over to 5e.
Yeah. Um, I know a group. I know we were talking about how it was made again. Um, I can see a lot of this this was used as a basis for Tomb of Annihilation.
Hmm.
Um, but just the feel of the book. The Isle of Dread does exist. It's on the plane of water. In fifth edition, you can just have people show up there. Um, Someone did go through and recreate a fifth edition version for the book.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm trying to find out who they were again. I think it was Triceratops people. I can't remember their. Um,
Triceratops people.
yeah, it's Goldman Games.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay. Oh wait,
yeah,
you mean Goodman?
Goodman. Yeah,
Yeah, so that's the ones who do Dungeon Crawl Classics.
yeah.
Yeah, I think
So
they do actually. Now that you mention, I think that is who made it.
yeah,
Yes.
they did rewrite Isle of Dread for fifth edition. I'm actually quite curious as to like what that looks like. So I can like compare like did they have to go through and like overexpand this to, work for 5th edition, or did they keep it, completely, rules light like this one seems to be?
Yeah.
I'm very curious as to.
If it's the Dungeon Crawl Classics guys, and I've read a lot of their stuff, obviously, because I've run a few DCC games, and DCC games very rules light. It's not telling you how it's like big bad guy stuff. It's going to give you a lot of detail on kind of how things go, but most of your random interactions, like what I was just talking about, no, it's not likely to give you much info. It's going to give you the basics of what you need, and you kind of get to roll with it.
Yeah, understood. I'm just curious as to um how it is. I'm kind of looking at some of the pictures of it, and they definitely had a formatter go through and add effects and um pad out things with better design for sure,
Sure.
and that adds
Yeah.
up space, and that's not a problem.
Yeah.
But it does look pretty much one for one in a lot of places. So
That's awesome.
um, I'd be interested in grabbing hold of that book, but $100 right now. Jeez.
What? No. Uh,
Yes, only
maybe.
one I've seen for sale. Um, but yeah, I really like this. I really like looking through this. It was great. I liked the monsters that they had in there. I liked the dungeon. I kind of flipped through there. All the dungeons is like, yep, here's a floor full of just boiling hot water. Yeah, you're gonna fall into it. Make a save versus death ray. Oh yeah, you die if you fall
Yeah.
unconscious in here. Good luck.
Yep. Yeah. No, those old modules are fucking brutal, man. You're expected to make multiple characters, and I
So
love it. Love it.
so
Um,
overall, it definitely has my seal of approval, and I'm
I just want you to. I want to see you run it for 5e.
maybe I will. It
You should.
depends.
You should make it happen after you're done with your other campaign. Run that one.
I can't. That one goes to level 45.
What? No, the Olive Dread. No, it only goes level
No,
7.
my campaign goes to 45.
The one you're running.
Yeah.
I thought you were running water deep heist thing.
No, that it started that and ended that, and now I'm doing like Waterdeep expanded,
Oh, okay.
Waterdeep plus plus.
So you're actually going to run them to epic levels.
Oh yeah, that's the plan.
Did you ever get the epic book online?
What epic book online?
There, the DM's Guild. There's an epic handbook.
No,
You should.
no, they're gonna have to become gods themselves and figure things out that way.
Yeah. Sadly, I don't think there are any books for being a deity in 5e. I've never seen one. Epic levels are not deific per se. You could get a hold of the the basic edition Immortals box set. You know, if you got $500 laying around.
Don't get ahead of me.
Oh, oh, you motherfucker!
I'll talk about that later. Anyways,
Oh, I'm driving to your house right now.
anyways, I do got a couple fun stories about Adventures League that I have to talk about.
All right. Well, I want to talk about Azalin before we wrap this thing up.
Sure, you can capstone us with Aslan.
Awesome.
Is he Mind Flayer Terrask or whatever?
See, and that right there is why I want to talk about Azalin.
So I'm running my players through my Owl campaign, and it's just kind of like testing things out again, um, making sure that the encounters are balanced the way I like them to be. And there's a essentially I made an anglerfish chol. Okay, so chol is like a giant like rock lobster.
Okay.
It stays in caves, giant pinchers. This one in particular is in the Feydark. It has a climbing ability because it just basically hides in the rocks. It's camouflage in the rocks, and it basically has this little anglerfish light that it flips back and forth. That looks like a wounded fairy. All right.
Okay.
So when you run over to investigate the fairy, it snaps at whatever touches the fairy. All right, and then tries to scurry away into the darkness of the of its cliffside that it's basically on, the ravine that it's hanging out in, and eats the prey while it's alive.
Right.
That's the extent of the creature. So when my original group came across this thing, it grabbed somebody and began to scurry away with them. It then crushed the player the following round, knocking them unconscious. And as it was scurrying away, the player shot the monster, killing it, making both the player that was in its grasp and the monster fall into the ravine of endless nightmares and die horribly.
So you killed another character.
So I killed another character.
All right.
So in Avengers League, however, I had brought back the same monster. Okay. Same situation. It's hiding there in the edge of the ravine. It looks like a rock. They did some perception checks. They didn't see anything. And this little wounded fairy is slipping back and forth. And they did pass a couple medicine checks, and they're like, it definitely looks like it's wounded, but it doesn't look right. So they get close, but they don't touch it. And the paladin that's right close next to it does a perception check and just bombs it. Gets like a 1 or a 2.
Yeah.
And just horrible check on the perception for this wounded fairy thing. And you're like, yeah, it's a wounded fairy. It looks like it's in distress, man. That's what it looks like. And then the warlock casts Mage Hand and pins the fairy to the ground. All right.
Okay.
And I had basically said that whoever touches it, this thing comes out and snaps at whatever touches it.
Yeah.
So it came out and snapped at the Mage Hand.
Yep.
So it failed at surprise because it doesn't see that there's nothing there.
Yeah, it doesn't know that it doesn't know what it is, just that something grabbed it.
So now there's a big rock monster there and the paladin. Roll initiative. Paladin gets a 20. Man, he's going first. Yeah. And so he goes, we're on the edge of a ravine, right? It's like, yeah. He's like, I want to push it.
Yeah.
And so all right, good luck, man. And in my head, I'm like, all right, this thing has climbing speed. It can climb on rocks. It doesn't have, it's too big. It doesn't have any grippers. It's like a mountain goat climbing,
Yep.
They can climb these insane vertical things, but nothing's gripping it into the stone, So I'm giving it advantage on the athletics check against the paladin and his athletics check. Okay.
All right.
And that made sense to me. Because my guy is climbing and he doesn't.
My assumption is it would be like me with my dwarf paladin on Celasta trying to shove things and just failing over and over again. But
so he rolls like a 16 or something like that, adds his athletics, and gets a 24 at the end of the day.
All right.
Maybe it was a 17. I think it had a +7.
Yeah.
And then I roll for my my angler chill.
On advantage.
I get on advantage. And on advantage, it gets a 5.
Yep.
So he just goes poof, pushes it off a cliff into the ravine, and it's gone. And everyone was so hyped to fight this thing too, because I explained what it was and shown pictures and shit. And they just one round, less than 6 seconds, just but all right, on to the next thing. Yep. We're gonna ignore that.
That's how some encounters be.
And it made my day that it just went that way. It made my day. It made me know that encounter was perfectly designed. First time I ran it, player died. Second time I ran it, it died in the first turn. It's perfect. Perfect. So it's been a couple weeks later, and they're finally in the castle in this Feydark they're supposed to be going through. And they're scoping out this destroyed barracks, and they peek through a window. They see a bunch of undead. They use see a bunch of corpses. They use divine sense. No, they're definitely undead, but there's a magic axe stuck in the table. So they go back and they talk to the main NPC that's there, who's Charlie the Spectator. That it's spectator as in the little beholder aberration.
Right, as a spectator.
Yeah. And he's just like, how you doing, guys? welcome to my party. We're just gonna eat and drink and have fun. And he wears a red cap, and he has a bunch of Fey Goblin with him, and they wear red caps, and there's one red cap with them.
Oh, yeah. So so everybody's wearing red caps, and then there's an actual red cap.
Yes. So, Charlie, the spectator wants nothing more. I don't think I actually named him Charlie. I just couldn't remember what his name was. I just said Charlie because my wife's been making fun of me for using Steve as my catch-all name. So I've been using
You've been doing it
Charlie.
too.
So I used Charlie this case. And he basically wants them to go into the old potion shop. And in the back, there is basically a solid chest. And inside the solid chest, there's a potion that he wants that'll turn him into an actual beholder. All right.
All right.
And in reality, the potion is just a giant growth potion. It doesn't really make him a beholder. He's still a spectator, but he does get disintegrate gaze because he believes in himself that much.
Makes sense. That's how beholders work.
I mean, kind of, yeah. So they go through. They do the encounter in the potion shop. They get the potion, and they give it to Charlie. Charlie's excited. Now he's a beholder because he's bigger. And they go, "Hey, Charlie, you want to go destroy those undead in the other room?" He's like, "Fuck yeah, I do. I'm a beholder now." And they do a persuasion check, and they just ace that thing. And they're cheering for Charlie, and he just basically disintegrates beams the entire thing, just blowing out the encounter. And then I basically have all the goblins that are on his side run in to get the axe because they all know it's there. But the players also wanted the axe, so they run in and they try to get the axe. And it's between one goblin and a player, and it was the same with the push the guy off the cliff. Well, this time he fails his check, and the goblin wins the axe. So they party with the goblins, and they're taking a long rest. And the paladin's like, "I'm kind of I think it was oath of vengeance, or oath of glory, sorry."
All right.
And he's like, "I really want that axe though." And so he's like, "I want to sneak over to where that goblin is sleeping." He said, "Are all the goblins asleep?" I'm like, "Yep, all the goblins are asleep." "All at the same time?" "Yes, they are." He's like, "All right." So I get over to the goblin, and I said he has axe, right? It's like, "Yep." He's like, can I see if anyone's watching me?" I was like, "Sure, we're all perception check." And he bombs it. But I'm like, even though he bombs it, Charlie's watching you. He's a spectator. His whole job as a spectator is to guard
It's to
things.
spectate. Yes, he watches.
Yeah, all he does is watch. So he's wide awake, just like, "I don't sleep, bitch." I'm just gonna sit here.
I got 7 eyes closed, but one's awake.
So he's watching him, and then I have Charlie go, "Kill him for the axe." He's like, "You be okay with that?" He's like, "Yeah, kill him and take the axe." And so he's like, "Hold on." So he wakes up all the other players, and they all sneak up to where the goblin is, and they all just prison shank the shit out of him.
Oh no.
And then I go, "It's like, what oath were you again?" He's like, "Oath of glory." I was like, "And what's your alignment?" He's like, "I'm chaotic good." I'm like, "You're chaotic neutral now, buddy."
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely not a good act by any means.
You didn't break your oath, but you're taking that alignment hit.
Yeah, like an Oath of Glory paladin would have wanted to win it in combat. Like that's how I would have expected it to go down.
They did win in the combat. They shanked the shit.
Yeah, well, you know what I mean. Actual one-on-one, mano a mano. Let me fuck this goblin up.
That's kind of what I was hoping he would do. He would wake the goblin up and fight it and kill it and take it. But no, they went with the whole like, "Now we're gonna prison jump this bitch." I couldn't say no. I was laughing my ass off.
Riverside, motherfucker. Just stab him a bunch. That's fucking great.
Barf, here's some coins.
Not even gonna get into all the stories from our recent D&D game, but
All right,
weird.
so let's
Yeah,
talk about Azeroth, the Planet Eater.
yeah. So you've never heard of Azalin,
I mean,
and that
I know so many Az names. I just don't.
I trust me, I didn't expect you to know Azalin. I didn't know who
He's a
Azalin
fucking
was.
lion from Narnia.
No, that maybe. I don't think that's the same one. I think they're spelled differently. I didn't know who Azalin was until this week when I started actually reading through the Ravenloft book cover to cover from third
No,
edition.
Aslan's a fucking Beyblade, man.
Cool. So Azalin.
Lion.
Yeah,
It's Azalin, not Aslan.
I never said Azalon. You did. Azalin Rex. That is his name. And so Ravenloft is a weird fucking place to start with. Just reading the actual history of Ravenloft from what, at least from the third edition book. I know there's not much in 5e at all on the actual lore. Uh, no one knows exactly how the Domain of Dread came to be, but the assumption is that uh, what's the fucking vampire's name? Jesus Christ. The main vampire, Strahd.
Broad.
Thank you. Yeah, my brain went elsewhere. I was thinking of Soth. But yeah, like Strahd was apparently the first person to ever live there. And if you look into his backstory, he was basically some warlord he spent his whole life, his youth, as a warrior, fighting, doing battle and whatnot. And then he ends up as an old man, and he's never known love or anything. And he has this young cousin, I believe it is, who is hanging around him. He's teaching him how to be a warrior, etc. And that guy falls in love. Saw, not Saw, Strahd falls in love with the same girl. So then on the guy's wedding day, Strahd kills her or kills him, and then she goes and jumps out of a fucking window. And right after that happens, the Domain of Dread claims Strahd, creating Ravenloft. So Ravenloft is broken up into a whole bunch of different domains, and there's always a Dark Lord in those domains, no matter what. You know, if the Dark Lord is ever killed, that domain ceases to be, or it claims a new Dark Lord. And that is the one guaranteed rule of Ravenloft. There's always a Dark Lord. So Azalin runs the domain of Darkon. He was just an adventurer, an outsider who got pulled there. And mind you, the actual details on it, I haven't delved that deeply into it. So he probably did some horrible shit, became the Dark Lord, just like Strahd, just like every other Dark Lord. Now, Strahd, everybody knows, but this guy is way more fucking powerful and done way more shit in Ravenloft than Strahd ever has. Strahd spends his time chasing the reincarnation of that long lost girl. Like if you've run the I don't know if you've run it, but the 5e adventure, that's literally what his goal is. He's just trying to find Tatiana. Now, Azalin, on the other hand, doesn't care about that shit. He just wants out. And that means he will get out through any means necessary. He has created 2 fucking cataclysms in Ravenloft trying to get out of this place.
All
Like
right.
this is a badass dude, and nobody fucking knows of him. Like I don't know why WotC hasn't been like, fuck Strahd, let's write more about this guy. So anyway, that's Azalin. That's what I wanted to talk about briefly.
I just wanted to rant that there's a good character no one's using.
Yes, yes, he is way more fucking awesome than Strahd. Strahd is he's a fucking lovesick
Listen,
puppy, and this guy is a fucking havoc wreaker.
there's to be honest, there's enough Lich Lords as main villains in D
He's
and D. They
he's not a
didn't need enough.
he's not a lich. He's probably a mummy.
He's a Lich.
Description: as an undead wizard, Aslan's true appearance resembled a skeleton or mummy.
Right, that's what he looks like.
Yeah, they don't know what he is.
Looking at his wiki, he's a Lich. Yeah,
Either way,
he
he's
is a
way better.
Lich. He is a Lich Lord. And so honestly, his phylactery is an enormous golden dragon skull, which is fucking awesome.
That is pretty cool. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
okay, there it is. Now I've got the wiki pulled up, but I haven't read through it. So
I mean, to be fair, there are he'd be the third Lich Lord in modern day D&D, and that's probably the only reason they haven't done anything more with him. Like to cause a cataclysm in the domains of dread
twice.
Once is enough. Twice is insane.
So the primary continent where Ravenloft is at is called. It's referred to as the core. There's a shitload of domains. He controls 1/3 of it.
Yeah,
like Barovia, where Strahd is at, is just a tiny little place, sort of in the middle of it.
yeah. I think Strahd. The reason why Strahd is so iconic and popular is because
he's first. Yeah,
he's first, and he's Dracula.
he is Dracula. That is true.
He's just Dracula, and Dracula gets a lot of play, and then Azalin, even though he's a great lion, there's just it's Aslan, by the way. There's too many Lich Lords, and if you're gonna do a Lich Lord, you always need a master and apprentice kind of dynamic going on, So you've got Vecna, and you have Asarak, and Asarak is the more lesser known Lich Lord, but still the more prominent one in 5th edition. At least until later this month.
And those aren't even the ones I was thinking of. I was thinking of the fucking red wizard ones, whose names I'm forgetting.
Yeah. Shit, there was just a movie out, and
I know, right? Yeah. Yeah, damn it.
It starts with an S.
Yeah, yeah. D&D movie lich name. Zastam. There you go.
Zastam. So, yeah, there's another on the list of Lich Lords. So, having another Lich Lord, you can have one Lich Lord per letter, and we already have Asarak.
Well, I think you can have a Lich Lord per setting. But mind you, they just don't do enough with Ravenloft at all.
No. Plus, there's there's cooler domains I would play with than.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Yeah, like the one with the techno alchemy. Like,
yeah.
I've never really talked to you much about that, but I have a story that I've had since probably high school in my head. That's Frankenstein alchemy adjacent, that I always wanted to kind of tell and see through, but the whole it's a werewolf versus vampire story, and I don't want to ever see another.
That's called Twilight.
Yeah, I never want to see another one of those fucking things ever again in my life. Even though I think my techno alchemy spin to it would be unique, I never want to see another one of those things in my entire life.
Yeah,
so
no, I get it. One of the really fucking cool things about Ravenloft, though, is the setting. It can be literally Stone Age all the way up to Renaissance. All the domains are different. Like,
you can go all the way. You can go all the way to steampunk.
You could technically, but it at least in the 3rd edition book, it walks you through all of them up to the Renaissance era. But it does mention that the Renaissance era is also starting to transition into Steam, and it does mention that. So
you know what? Actually, speaking of this, which is actually quite kind of serendipitous, I was at my LGS and they put out this book that I purchased from them. It is Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft. 5e collector edition cover.
Okay.
Actually, I didn't have that, so I picked it up.
Yeah, no, I did talk about that one briefly on here for one episode, and I was actually a big fan of that book. Like, that's actually a really good 5e book.
Yeah, a lot of monsters, a lot of good explanation about the dreads, creating your own Darklord. I really like this book quite a bit, and it was on sale recently. I have a couple copies just sitting around to give to people.
Yeah.
Trying to find what the domain was that I was thinking of. That's kind of like the techno.
Yeah, I don't remember the name of it. I think I read about it. I read about the steampunk esque, and there was one where it was very sort the Dark Lord was sort of a Frankenstein creator type person. That's
Ah,
probably the one.
yeah, I found the art piece for it. It's Dr. Victra Mordenheim, Dark Lord of Lamortia.
Okay,
Crafts basically, you know, it's Frankensteinish kind of stuff.
yeah,
Um, but it techno organic stuff.
yeah.
But yeah,
Those
like whatever fantasy thing you like, folk horror, dark fantasy, they have ways of making a domain of dread for that.
Oh yeah. The one that interests me the most is the desert area full of mummies and lost lost areas, lost ruins and stuff.
I've never been a big fan of mummy areas.
I don't know. It just seemed interesting to me. Uh,
I have the Brendan Fraser movies.
oh, they're
I'm
so
good
good.
with mummies forever.
The first two are amazing.
They're
The-
all amazing. Shut up.
no, the third one introduced a young kid, and that tends to ruin movies and
No, he
shows.
was great. I loved him.
Ugh.
He was like, "What's this?" And he stuck his hand in the artifact. I'm like, "Oh shit! Now I'm cursed forever, and I'm gonna die in 2 days."
And he didn't.
God, God damn it! Really?
Hashtag spoilers.
Now we got to go on an adventure with our family that fights mummies from forgotten times. How could this ever have happened? Oh God! I
I,
even like the Rock in it. You know,
yeah, no, he was fine.
I know the
Yeah.
CGI was shit, but
Yeah, but it was also early CGI. Yeah. I
even Core to Crew redoing that CGI, it still didn't look good.
yeah. Yeah, it was pretty rough. I did like the actual Scorpion King movie that he did though.
Yeah,
Just a dumb action adventure barbarian flick, and it was fucking entertaining.
I actually was watching. Um, do you know the YouTube channel called Cinema Sins?
I do not.
Okay, Cinema Sins is basically a channel where this guy is just overly critical and grumpy about movies.
So it's your
Um,
kind of channel.
it was until I stopped cutting those kind of channels out of what I watch in normal rotation.
It's probably good for
Um,
your mental health.
yes. Instead, I picked up a kind of like sister channel called Cinema Wins,
Okay.
which is the flip side of that. Basically, saying everything great about a movie, even the shitty movies. This guy's like, this is actually a greatly written scene. These characters are pretty good at motivation. If he would have done this and this, it probably would have been better for the movie and would have fixed it. It's a
Yeah.
much better channel.
Yeah.
Same concept and everything, but he actually reviewed The Mummy recently, and he brought up the fact that the Scorpion King was there, and however that made it to through the cutting room and onto the screen, it happened. Maybe they had The Rock signed up for the Scorpion King movie, and they just had to funnel it in. But he said that if they would have swapped over from this guy, whatever he was, and whatever dark god he worshipped, versus Anubis, and kind of spun that way with the storyline, where it's the mummy versus Anubis, and they're kind of like fighting it out for power. It
Hmm.
would have made more sense to the actual religions and stuff that they had set up at that time,
Yeah. Yeah.
and made a lot more sense. And you would have had Anubis show up, and you don't have enough of that in movies nowadays. So movies at all, really.
Yeah.
Anubis hardly ever gets touched, which is really kind of a shame.
Yeah. I
I
think
know he's in American Gods
and Moon Knight, but I
and
think
Moon
that
Knight, but that's
yeah.
different.
Yeah, no, I would love for them to start doing some more movies like that. I mean, there's so many movies with Zeus and um, Odin, and like there's shit tons of those movies. You can find them all over the internet. But
Yeah.
you're not wrong. There are not a lot that I can think of dealing with the Egyptian deities.
And
There,
whenever they try, it fails horribly.
you got Stargate.
Oh god damn, Stargate.
Love the movie. Never saw the show.
I know there was a movie with Jamie Lannister recently, maybe 10 years old at this time. That was all the Egyptian gods rolled into one, but they just had human form the entire time, and they
That's no
weren't
fun.
I know, unless you have a talking hippo, I'm not invested.
That's right. Or talking a man with a crocodile head. That's what I'm here
Jackal,
for.
jackal, is that a jackal?
Is it a jackal? Maybe it's a jackal. That's what I'm here for. That's what I want.
So
All
yeah,
right.
it's just it's never been my bag, which is actually kind of funny too. Is because my grandmother, um, she died when I was a teenager, but um, she she knew like everything there was to know about ancient Egypt. You know, because in her era when she grew up, people were eating mummies and shit.
Mm-hmm.
Um, she could read hieroglyphics. She knew like three or four dead ancient languages, and was one of the few people on the east coast of this country that could actually translate those languages for her. And unfortunately, for the time and place that she, she grew up in, she doesn't get to be part of any books,
Right. Yeah.
or
Yeah. Yeah.
uh, but there's like a couple books that she is basically wrote herself and another doctor published because a
Yeah.
woman
Yeah.
writing a
Because
book.
yeah,
Oh God.
can't have
Uh,
women in that. Yeah. Not
like
okay.
stories about King Tut and stuff like that, and translations of old hieroglyphs and old scrolls and shit that she was involved in. And it makes me kind of sad that like I want nothing to do with ancient Egypt, and I had a source so close to me that I could have used up at any time.
Well, you still do. Our buddy Christian. I think that's what his degree is in.
I mean, it's so sandy, and I hate sand. It gets everywhere.
Oh, I got it. Well, nobody's talking about actually going over to the desert. Not for you, at least.
I think if you start studying ancient Egypt, sand starts showing up in places that you never knew sand could come from.
Eh,
I think that's part of the ancient curses of the mummies.
that could be. You're just laying in bed in South Carolina, and why the fuck is there sand in my bed? Did we go to the beach today? Go to the
So,
bathroom. It's just all over the floor.
so did you know that there was a Victorian era pigment called mummy? It was
I
like
didn't.
a
I did not.
kind of like a light brown,
Yeah, like a
and
yellowish,
yeah. And do you know how they got that color?
probably ground up mummies.
Ground up mummies.
Yeah,
Used
because
as a
that.
lipstick.
Yeah, because that's the weird shit that people used to do.
They used to add ground up mummy ashes to their food because they thought it was nutritious.
I mean, we still have idiots who are, taking rhino horn to get erect.
Well,
So
no, they stopped it because they started 3D printing rhino horn that they couldn't detect was fake, and they flooded the market with it, and they kind of destroyed that industry.
I hope that's the case. I don't know that that's true, but
No, it's very true. Uh,
um,
it's been going on. It's been
I
going
had
on for over a decade now.
I had read about that a couple of years ago about them hoping to do that. It was I don't even remember who was talking about it. So, like I listened to a podcast about it, but few years ago that wasn't the case. Like it was the rhino trade was definitely still in full swing. Poachers were still a thing. Anyway, uh,
I remember watching a clip from uh Pawn Stars where a guy comes in, he goes, "I want to sell you a rhino horn,"
yeah,
and you
buddy,
look
that's
at it,
illegal.
and you're like, "That's not a rhino horn, man. That's a tusk of some kind." And he's like, "No, it's real rhino horn." He's like, "I'll give you $100 for it." Okay,
Oh
all
yeah,
right.
definitely sold that real rhino horn for $100.
Well, the best part was he brought the expert in, and they came in and looked at it. He goes, "Oh, this is a walrus tusk.
Okay,
It's worth $1,000. It's illegal to trade."
yeah, yep, yeah.
Come to the Grumpy Dungeon Master podcast for all of your ivory
Yeah,
identification.
if you want details on ivory or rhino tusk, we're definitely the experts on this subject.
You know,
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that's it for this week. Bye, Claude. Bye, Craig.